Dear ladies and gentlemen, the fourth phase in the design thinking approach, in one iteration at least of the design thinking approach, is the prototyping phase. So your task would be to prototype your solution you have selected in the prior phase and design this prototype. And in order that you are able to accomplish this task, I will introduce you in a few methods for prototyping. The basic function of a prototype in the design thinking approach is testing. So it should be testable by users. And therefore, the idea is of a prototype that the prototype enables you to collect a maximum of learning experience. So it's a kind of a test or learning vehicle. It's not something you should instantly implement, but you should be able to present to customers in order to collect feedback and derive learning experience out of it. And therefore, the kind of prototype which is useful in the design thinking approach could be called minimum viable product. Minimum because it should show the minimal elements which are of value to the user. And this is also indicated by the term viability, that the user says, okay, this is a kind of solution which really addresses problems I have. And it should only show this, so the key features which are of value to the user and nothing else, because everything else is just confusing to the user. As you can see here in this graph, so the purpose of a prototype in the design thinking approach is not that you display just one feature of your solution, but you present the minimum what your solution is about, and this should be then able that you should be able then to develop it further with further features when you go through other iterations of the design thinking approach. So a meaningful prototype or minimal viable product is not to display just one element like the functions if you have an app, for example, but that you display the minimal functions, but also other quality criteria which are of value for the users, like reliability, or for an app, for example, the usability of an app, and also the look and feel, so that the app seems to be attractive to the user. And there are two different, I call it, strategies for prototyping. You can either choose to design a vertical prototype, which means that you display something which goes across to different perspectives: the customer view, the provider view, and perhaps also the governance view, which addresses the political basics of a certain mobility solution. Another option would be to design a prototype horizontally. That means that you go through the customer view of the customer journey from the discovery or the booking of the mobility solution till the feedback or whatever marks the end of the process. In both cases, the requirement for a prototype is that it should be presentable to stakeholders, and it should be accessible or testable by the stakeholders. And of course, you could also combine some aspects of a vertical prototype and some aspects of a horizontal prototype. And in order to make this clearer, I show you for both strategies one example. The example is here the MaaS solution, Mobility as a Service solution. And when we view the whole solution, like MIM, for example, you have, and this is the stakeholder view, 5 different stakeholders in this solution. The first stakeholder, of course, is the MaaS customer, who has certain requirements regarding the services which are needed. And these requirements are addressed to the MaaS providers. The MaaS providers again have certain requirements regarding the data they need in order to provide their service. The data are usually real-time data regarding schedules, journeys, and so on. And these are usually provided by data providers. And the data providers are the layer between the MaaS providers and the transport operators, because the transport operators, they have the data and they should be provided, analyzed, aggregated by the data providers so that they are useful then for the MaaS customers. And the basis of the system are local governmental bodies, because they can fuel the MaaS solutions by certain policies, tax policies, car banning policies, whatever. So we have here 5 different stakeholders who provide different services, and in order to prototype them, you can make a vertical cut and also a horizontal cut. I will show you this. The vertical cut would be this, that you have to design who are the customers of the MaaS solution. This could be commuters, it could also be freight companies, whoever. Then the MaaS providers, they have to provide a customer interface. This is usually the interface layer of a platform, and in the back office of the platform is the MaaS back office system, which provides all the data, and the data are fueled by the data providers. They usually provide something which is technically called an AP gateway. AP is the abbreviation for Application Programming Interface. So this gateway collects, analyzes, aggregates all the data from the transport providers, which have also application programming interfaces, and transports them to the back office system of a MaaS providers. And on the basis of everything is the MaaS governance system. In detail, it looks like this. For example, you have consumers as passengers, you have freight companies, you have also kind of a public policy. Then you have a MaaS customer interface which provides some technical services. These are displayed usually by an app, like a MaaS wallet, where you have, for example, your payment system into that and your preferred destinations. You have a kind of perhaps a personal journey assistant, which shows you the routes you are going and all the connections which are possible when you are at a certain place. You might also have dynamic journey planners, so if public transport is late, what are options for the next journey? And you might also have the possibility to provide social feedback on the services which are provided. And in the back office system, you have kind of a usage analytics engine which enables the MaaS provider to personalize the app. So what are the most chosen destinations, for example? What are the preferred payment methods? They have a demand allocation engine in order to manage and to orchestrate all the services, the transport services. They have kind of a journey planning engine, a payment engine, and so on. The data providers provide then the collection and the processing of all the data which are provided by the transport operations. That are pretty technical terms here, which have to do with transport protocols. So I don't go into detail with this. But then we have the transport operators who are the owner of the data and who have to provide their data private application programming interfaces to the data providers. And on the basis of everything is then the MaaS governance system, where there are funding regulations, tax reliefs, passenger right regulations, ticket reselling regulations, whatever. And prototyping a MaaS solution could be done in this way, that you make a cut vertically through all the stakeholders and show the most important features the 5 certain stakeholders have to provide in order to make the whole system functioning. The other possibility, or I call it strategy, to do a prototype is to do a prototype horizontally. As I mentioned already, we have 2 basic value propositions in a MaaS solution, and this is a seamless end-to-end journey with certain features like flexible payments, personalization, and so on. And we have the free choice of certain transport modes which are to be selected. And another horizontal strategy in order to display a prototype, to design a prototype, is that you go through the journey of a user with a MaaS solution. So you only take one stakeholder, like the MaaS customer, and go through the phases of registration for a MaaS service. Then the journey planning, where am I, where do I want to go, when do I want to go, which vehicle options do I choose, the booking and payment of the services, then the confirmation, which can be clubbed together to the pre-travel phase. Then we have the travel phase, if everything goes as planned, and what does the system do if there are changes like delays. And then we might also have kind of a post-travel phase where, for example, the customer can provide feedback. And the question would be, the task for you, if you have in mind to prototype a MaaS solution, what should be the services provided in every phase here of this customer journey, which leverages the 2 value propositions, seamless end-to-end journeys, and a variety of travel options to take. So what services in every stage should be delivered to the user in order to make a MaaS solution marketable. And we will discuss this then later on. General prototyping methods from the point of view of the design thinking approach are paper prototypes. If you choose a horizontal prototyping strategies, this means that you design the user interface of a MaaS solution, which is usually an app, a mobile app, and you can then design all the pages, so the landing page and the subsequent pages of an app, which accompanies the journey of a customer with the MaaS solution. So this is the easiest prototype, which is chosen very often in the design thinking approach. A bit more sophisticated are storyboards. This is taken from the film or the movie industry, where you show also the journey of a customer together with the MaaS app, and you devise a kind of a story accompanied by the solution, how the customer interacts with the solution in all the stages of his journey. The third possible kind of a prototype is again a bit more sophisticated. They are called service blueprints because they are usually used in service industry when you try to secure the quality, for example, of a hotel service. And a service blueprint is comprised of first physical evidences, so what are the instruments or the tools with which a customer encounters usually. Then we have some user actions which go together with the physical evidence, which all together make up the on-stage actions, and then you have some backstage actions and also internal support. So it displays the service blueprint not only the horizontal customer journey with a solution, but goes beyond the on-stage or front-stage actions, also to the level of backstage actions. Then, what is also very often used in the design thinking approach are volumetric models. Seems to be a bit like a playground where you prototype a solution together with Lego or whatever in order to display this to the user. With respect to a seminal paper, this is rather not possible. And another possible prototyping method is the business model canvas. And this is the most sophisticated prototyping model, where you display on the left-hand side what is the value proposition of your solution for certain customer segments. In this case, I chose the example of Uber, which provides value propositions for users, but also for the drivers, so the Uber drivers. And then we have some means of customer relationships. So how do you encounter with your customers, and what are usually the channels by which you interact with your customers? This is the left-hand side. I call it the market side. The right-hand side, sorry. On the left-hand side, then you can think about, in order to deliver the value propositions, what are the key activities and the key resources. This is for Uber mainly marketing and sales, but also the demand and supply management. which needs some resources, and this is usually the Uber platform. And they are also dependent on key partners like payment processors, because they don't do the payment services by themselves. They need mapping data providers and also local authorities for that. And the right-hand side, so the market side and the internal operation side, the processes and resources, they together make then up the business model, which consists of the cost structure. So what are the main cost blocks of a certain service, and also the revenue streams. So in one page on a canvas side, this displays the whole business model of a certain solution. This might also be a possible method for prototyping a solution. So key messages are prototype in the design thinking approach should represent the key features of a solution, a kind of a minimal viable product. And the main purpose is to enable learning experiences in the test phase. Then you can use different strategies for prototyping. The first strategy is a vertical prototype, which makes a cut through the different layers of a solution or the different stakeholders, as I have showed you, but also horizontal prototypes which go along, which follow the way or the journey of a customer together with the solution. And then I showed you possible methods for doing a prototype, like paper prototypes, storyboards, blueprints, volumetric models, or business model canvas. Thank you very much.